Welcome to the Criminal Imagination. This series, Crime and Civilization, begins with a simple question. What if the true purpose of law is not justice but control? Across centuries, crime fiction has recorded the political fears of its age, from cursed kings and cunning thieves to corrupt judges and silent witnesses. Each episode investigates how power operates through narrative, what it hides, who it condemns, and what happens when the system turns inwards and begins to devour itself. London, a city of factories, smoke, soot, and children. Children who vanish into chimneys, into sweatshops, into gutters, and if they are lucky, into fiction. But even then, they are not safe. Here, we explore how crime fiction charts the birth and slow unraveling of the modern state. Today's case, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, and our lens, industrial urbanism. How the modern city, its machinery, poverty, and institutions creates the very criminals it claims to police. Let us begin with the setting. London in the early 19th century is not just a backdrop, it is a central character. A proto-industrial city surging with migrants crowded with bodies choking in coal smoke. The capital of empire, but also the capital of inequality. Oliver Twist, published between 1837 and 1839, is Dickens' furious response to this urban machine. He gives us a child born in a workhouse and tossed into the streets, not by accident, but by design. Oliver is not abandoned by chance. He is the logical product of institutional systems created under the Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834. Under this new industrial logic, poverty is not a condition to be alleviated. It is a moral failing to be punished. The workhouse becomes the modern factory's ideological cousin, a place where the poor are confined, disciplined, and stripped of dignity. In Dickens' world, to be born poor is to be born suspect. To be an orphan is to be criminalized from youth. Dickens' London is an ecosystem of misery. Its alleys are arteries, its workhouses are processing plants. Bodies enter, labor comes out. What happens to the rest is irrelevant. This is what we mean by industrial urbanism, not just machines and steam engines, but cities restructured around capitalist production, and that includes the production of crime. Here we meet one of Dickens' most unforgettable figure, Fagin. Now, how much has been written about the anti-Semitic undertones of Fagin's portrayal? Rightly so. But for this episode, we examine Fagin not as an ethnic caricature, but as a symbol of an economic function. Fagin's den is a parallel institution, a criminal counter-economy. It mimics the legal system of apprenticeships but operates with greater speed, efficiency, and profit. Young boys are trained under Fagin's tutelage, taught to pickpocket, deceive, vanish. They are paid in shelter, food, and the illusion of family. And yet, in this ecosystem, Fagin's criminal ring is arguably most responsive to the urban poor than the state. It offers work, skills, protection, although for a price. What Dickens reveals here is that criminality is not a deviation from society, it is a rational outcome of it. In a city governed by market logics, Fagin's operation is simply another business. It is the informal economy filling the void left by state abandonment. Compare this: the workhouses offer starvation and beatings in return for moral improvement. Fagin offers food, shelter, and tools to survive, however illicit. In a city like Dickens' London, the question isn't why boys turn to crime, it is why they wouldn't. Now let us examine how the modern state responds. The answer: poorly. Oliver is arrested for a theft he did not commit. No investigation, no compassion, no inquiry into his age, no inquiry into his vulnerability or history. He is immediately presumed guilty, a child criminal. This is not a failure of policing, it is its function. Dickens is painfully clear: the justice system is not built to protect children like Oliver, it is built to protect property. Urban policing in the 19th century is a relatively new invention. The Metropolitan Police were formed in 1829, just a few years before Dickens began publishing Oliver Twist. Their creation was not rooted in a desire to protect the poor, but to manage them, to surveil, contain, and discipline the underclass in a rapidly urbanizing society. The novel reveals how crime and civilization are not opposites, they are co-produced. The rise of industrial cities brings with it not just new economies, but new forms of social control. Consider how the law responds to Oliver's false accusation. First, his truth is irrelevant, and second, his class is the crime. He is treated not as an individual, but as a type: the street boy, the pickpocket, the untrustworthy orphan. His body carries a social assumption. In Dickens's London, your birth certificate is a criminal record. Let us now return to the ideology of the industrial state, the myth that wealth equals virtue. Dickens is relentless in attacking this idea. Characters like Mr. Bumble, the Beadle, represent the petty bureaucracies of moral capitalism. These are men who enforce cruelty under the banner of duty, who believe that poverty is the result of laziness and that children must suffer to become moral. Oliver is beaten, starved, sold, treated as less than human, because that is what the system requires to function. The workhouse is not broken, it is doing what it was designed to do. This is the moral hypocrisy Dickens dissects. That is, the state punishes Oliver for being poor, but the state also created that poverty. And then, when private enterprise steps in, through figures like Fagin, it criminalizes that survival. Crime, then, is not outside the system, it is its mirror, its illegitimate twin. What Fagin does in secret, the state does in daylight. Both extract value from vulnerable children. This is the industrial city's deepest crime, not just the abuse of children, but the normalization of that abuse as civic order. London is not just a place, it is a machine. It has no center, no sanctuary. Dickens constructed it as a labyrinth. Children get lost in it, justice disappears within it, and those who control its passageways, Fagin, Sykes, monks, become its gods. There is a maplessness to Dickens' urban space. Oliver is constantly moved, displaced, hidden, revealed. He is trafficked through a city that treats him as an object, not as a subject. The criminal underworld and the legal institutions are not opposites in this novel. They are adjacent buildings on the same street. You can walk from the courtroom to the gallows, from the workhouse to the brothel, from the chapel to the thief's den. The city is a circulatory system. It doesn't care what it carries, prayer or poison. It only moves. Dickens uses this spatial logic to show us a terrifying truth. There is no outside to the system. Fagin's lair and the magistrates' benches are part of the same architecture. One is clothed in shadow, the other in law. At the end of Oliver Twist, Oliver is rescued by chance, by luck, by benevolent bourgeois morality. He's adopted into a private home, given a name, a future, a family. But this ending is not a solution. It is an escape clause. Dickens himself seems to know this. For every Oliver saved, 100 more vanish. The workhouse is still there, the criminal economy still churns, the machine does not stop. Oliver's escape is less an ending than an anomaly, and this perhaps is the novel's most brutal truth, that salvation is not structural, it is individual, accidental, rare, and the system continues. Oliver does not bring justice to the city, he simply leaves it. Oliver Twist is a novel written 2 centuries ago, but its portrait of the industrial city and its treatment of the poor remains hauntingly familiar. Think of today's urban slums: child labor, surplus populations, informal economies, punitive welfare systems, mass surveillance, police violence against marginalized youth, the criminalization of the poor. What Dickens mapped in London has echoed across Lagos, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Detroit. The city in its modern form remains a site of moral contradiction. It promises opportunity but delivers precarity. It preaches civilization but criminalizes survival. The orphan then remains the perfect symbol of the modern state's failure, an innocent born into a system that cannot or will not care. In the end, Oliver Twist is not a story about crime, it is a story about the machine that manufactures it. The question Dickens leaves us with is not whether Oliver will be saved, but whether civilization can live with the fact that it created children like him in the first place. And so here is a question for you. If the modern city claims to be the height of civilization, then why does it need orphans to keep functioning? In the soot and silence of forgotten alleyways where children vanish into machines and law, and wear the mask of mercy, we trace the contours of a city built on shadows. History whispers, justice waits. We'll meet again, where fiction remembers what the world tries to forget. Until next time.